Waiting. Oh. Okay. Hello and welcome to Book Club in a Box, the first ever book club from Book in a Box. I'm so happy to see you, both those watching at home and those of us here at the Zoom call. I'm Sarah, and I'm joined today by Sophie. Can you wave? And Lisa. And Alberte. We are going to be talking about Soul of Shadow by Emma Noyes today. And I just want to give you a warning. We will be talking about spoilers and our complete experience. So if you want to remain spoiler-free, then please come back later once you've read the book, and we will be here on YouTube as a recording as well. Just to give a quick summary of the book, we are joining Charlie and her last year of high school, where she's still grieving the death of her sister, Sophie, from a couple of years before, when she meets a new student, Elias, in the woods while investigating the death and disappearance of some of her fellow classmates. Elias introduces her into the world of Asgard, of magical and mythical beings from another world, and danger awaits her. You can comment along in the chat if you have questions or commentary to what we're discussing, and I will be looking at it and taking it up if I find anything interesting or relevant. But first of all, I want to ask the three of you, what was your experience reading this book? Sophie, if we could start with you.
I had a lot of fun. I found it very entertaining. I still had some questions unanswered about some choices that the author made. But yeah, I had a great time reading the book, really.
There is a sequel coming where
Yes.
hopefully we can get some answers. What about you, Lisa?
I had a good time as well. It was a very easy read. I read it over a couple of days. I was just done with it. It was very easy to get into and very easy to just consume and have finished quickly. That was my overall thoughts of it. Yeah. I was surprised by how easy it was to get into like this world and how easy it was to get through it.
I think that's a really good compliment, that it was easy to get into the book.
Absolutely, yeah.
I felt that as well. What about you, Alberte?
I also think it was a very great experience to read this book because, as Lisa said, it was easy to get into. The author was good at explaining the world and what beings there are in it. And I also finished it in like a week or so. And it's absolutely stunning to look at.
Yes, the book is really pretty.
When I met the characters, I like to look into the insides, and then I could see, oh, that's her, and that's eating the kugel together. I think it was a very nice detail.
Yeah, I think the authors got, the artist got a lot of details that the author wanted to include in this book, hidden throughout the cover and the end pages. It's really, it's really cool. You briefly mentioned the creatures, and this book is theming with mythological creatures. The one that stands out to me is the mare, Elias, a living nightmare incarnate. What are your thoughts about this new or perhaps old creature, villain, monster type? Anyone can.
I liked it. To be fair, I'm Danish. I've grown up in Denmark. I kind of grown up with these creatures around me. Well, not physically around me, but like stories of these creatures, and I really liked seeing them in a story. And I think it was kind of a fresh take. Like, we have a lot of books with Greek mythology and all sorts of things. We have a lot of also books with like northern gods, the Asgardian gods, but all these creatures we've not really seen as much, and I really enjoyed that. I might be biased as well because, as I said, I've grown up with these creatures around me, but I really liked seeing them in a story. Yeah.
I also thought the mare depiction of this was close to what I've also grown up with about nightmares. It isn't kind of a marvelization of the myth. I think it stays true to what I know about mares.
A bit, yeah.
Yeah, okay. I liked also the monsters that were in the book, because I never read a book that was focused on the monsters of Asgard and not the gods, as Lisa said. And I liked also the little twist they have all the creatures. It was not as I heard in the stories, but it made me more. I had to be more up my toes to remember what it was like.
Yeah. What about you, Sophie?
Yeah, for me it was a complete discovery, because I'm not used to this kind of lore. Usually it's yes, the Norse gods or the Greek mythology, and so nightmare, I hadn't encountered that previously in other books. It made me think of succubus, the way it was described, because it was feeding on fear. You have succubus feeding on, yes, on emotions too, succubus, incubescence. So I made a parallel, but the other lore, yes, the Vette, maybe in Irish folklore, but for the rest, it was really specific to Norse mythology, and I had no previous knowledge of that mythology. So it was great, because it was different.
But that's also a great thing about this talk that we have, is that some of us have grown up with it, and for you it's completely new. So we get both the outside of you and the inside of you on the myths and creatures. I think it really mixes small time USA city stories, kind of like the Vampire Diaries that the author mentions in the foreword, with the North mythology. Of course, it means that the Northern mythology, kind of like Percy Jackson, has moved to a different continent. Do you think it blends well? The two?
I think it kind of does. I think I think the author has made a choice to set it in a state in the US, in a place where the environment and the weather conditions kind of resemble the Nordic Scandinavian countries. I think that's very intentional. She could have said it in Florida, which would like you wouldn't have recognized the forests or the beaches and stuff. But I think she intentionally sets it in an environment that kind of resembles where these creatures would live naturally, but where they originate from.
I've never been to Florida, but I would imagine a giant wolf would stick out.
Yes.
Yeah. And I don't think they have the kind of like big oaken, ashy forests that she describes here. Again, I've never been to Florida either, but also the weather in is it Minnesota? Michigan.
Yes.
is kind of a bit more like
Lake
the Scandinavian weather than in the more southern states.
Also,
the climate.
Also, ash rice are a big thing of the forest ecoculture, and for that you need ash trees.
Yeah,
I get. So it would have to be in an environment where they could grow.
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts about the characters? Any specific character that stood out to you, that were your favorite? I really want to go into the more personal route.
I love Charlie, and she has a complete transformation, complete character growth. I would say a regrowth, because when we are reading about her in her childhood, she was daring, she was mischievous, she was, and then after her sister's death, she regressed. It was like she impersonated her sister, who was shyer, more introverted, and then now she's forced to be herself again, to dare to do other things. And I really liked this journey for her, from extroverted when she was a little child to introverted because she was grieving, to again extroverted and daring and bold. So and she was also smart, which I appreciated, and I also loved her hobby, because it was a particular hobby we don't see in many books. So yeah, I found it very, very interesting.
I like Charlie too, because as you said, Sophie, like regrowth, and also the comments that her brother made about "Do you really care?" made me really think, how are she reaction over her brother? Does she really ask him how it's going and see how she regrows, how she gets better and more out and more social? And I really loved the Vade.
I also love the Vade. Henry.
Yeah.
He's so cute. But I want to touch on what you said about the relationship with Mason, her brother, because that's what stood out to me the most, is we're trusting Charlie so much in the beginning as a reader. Oh, of course, she knows her brother, she can read him perfectly. But as the book goes on, we notice that she's unreliable and that she isn't actually seeing her brother and his grief over their sister as well. And I really like that subtle twist. It isn't in the foreground, it isn't necessarily what the book is centered about, but I really like that characterization that hey, he is grieving both the dead sister and the relationship he has with the living sister. I really like that.
Yeah, it also made me think, is there other side of the story to this? How does he see all the with Sophie that was dead, and how was your all that?
Definitely also made me think of like, how did he take it? How did Mason react to losing a sister? And if I remember correctly, it kind of says at some point that Charlie realizes that she lost a sister, but Mason also lost a sister. And even though it was Charlie's twin, and there was probably a different relationship than what Mason had with Sophie, she kind of like, of course, he also lost someone here. And yeah, it made me really intrigued to know how he coped with the grief, how he took it, as you said, about that he actually kind of lost two sisters. Yeah.
And it surprised us at the end because he's really in and he tries to help her and he's he's more present in the end. Maybe we'll have another dimension, this second book, a more important role to play. I don't know, but yes.
Because and hopefully the relationship develops and they can kind of find each other again.
Because I got the feeling that he missed Charlie, the real Charlie, that he has been grieving Sophie, and then he's been watching Charlie go into herself and sort of become a Sophie copy, but missing the Charlie she was. And then in this book, she begins to unfold herself again, and he enjoys seeing his little sister becoming herself.
Yeah. That being said, I kind of was a little annoyed with Charlie. I think she was a bit annoying, and I don't know if it's based in anything real or if she just kind of reminds me of myself at that age, and I kind of don't like that maybe. But I was a bit annoyed with her. But she's also very much 16, like she's very much a teenager, and she acts like a teenager. And while that can be a bit frustrating as an adult reading this, if the author kind of conveys really well, this is a teenager. She will act a bit rash, a bit quickly, will follow her emotions a bit too much, and will not always reflect and think about everything, but just act. But that's very much a 16-year-old girl.
A deeply traumatized.
A deeply traumatized,
16-year-old girl. I also found her as an adult to be taking the wrong choices, but I can recognize that it's because my frontal lobes have grown together and I can more correctly judge a situation. So I think it was a really realistic portrayal of a teenager. One character I really didn't like was Lou, because I think despite Charlie being completely encased in grief, is correct in thinking that Lou wants to replace Sophie with Abigail. I think my reading was that it was really soon after the death of Sophie. Lou forces Abigail into this friend group, and it isn't good for Abigail to be forced to be a stand-in for someone who died, and it isn't good for Charlie to be forced to be around someone who's a stand-in. So I that's also a 16-year-old girl, but I really didn't like Lou at all. I think she was too pushy.
But maybe Lou is getting more pushy because Sophie is taking a step back, so she has to take a step forward to get Charlie to do something
Yeah.
more. Then he tries to push her even more. I
I
don't say
think-
it's the right thing to do, but
No.
Mhm.
No, and I guess she's also grieving one of her friends. Yeah. Did you have any thoughts or comments about the fan group, about this gaggle of 16-year-old girls?
They were very much 16-year-old girls. I don't think I really felt like I got to know any of the friends. They were very much there, and then when they were together they did stuff, and then they weren't there, and then there was nothing.
Yeah.
So I don't think they were as deep as maybe Charlie was or Elias was. They were very like on the cover. We didn't see very much depth to them, and I didn't get a feeling that I got to know them.
No.
And Abigail in particular didn't do very much, and was quite passive quite a long
Yeah.
way through.
Yeah.
She was really concerned about going to college.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, I get it. When you're 16, that's very important.
Mm.
But yeah, especially Abigail was very one note for me, and a bit of a caricature. I come from the big city and I'm bisexual, and you've never seen a colored person before. But
Perhaps she's a character who will be unfolded more in the sequel,
hopefully, yeah.
where
Yes.
she's forced to confront some of her very narrow and strict worldviews with the world of the magic.
I think once the side character know the truth, they probably will be more present and more active in the sequel.
Probably,
Because
yeah.
here they were forced in the surrounding of Charlie, because she did all the thing in her own way, in secret. She didn't share anything because Elijah didn't want her to. But yes, so they were forced to be in the background, like decor.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
But I didn't really think I get to know them either. I don't know what they like to do, other than Abigail wants to get to college and Willie is worried about the SATs, and Lou is more, she is more pushy and loves the boys, but I don't really know what they like to do and what are their values in life. And
perhaps there's a comment from the author that stuff gets pushed into the background when you face a giant wolf trying to end all of humanity.
Which is fair.
Which is fair. But just staying with boys, particularly as the author writes, a bad boy newcomer to town with a killer smirk and a leather jacket, Elias Everhart, the vampire standing mayor agent of Loki. I enjoyed him. I felt he was unpredictable in an unpredictable, believable way. I did not necessarily see him as the end romantic option that the author perhaps wants me to see him as. Did you totally believe the romance? Can he be redeemed? Is there a future for them? What are your thoughts?
I hope there is a future, but it was a really morally gray / villain character. Because at one point I thought, okay, he will follow Charlie, he will protect her, he won't go too far. And then he went too far. So I was surprised, honestly, because in that kind of book, you have the good girl who saves the bad boy. But that was not the case here. But I don't think all hope is lost either. So I think we will have probably a kind of redemption story in the sequel. I don't know.
I wasn't convinced either, because he had all the little comments about it only matters about the boys, it doesn't matter if they're dead or not, I just want to solve the mystery. And I wasn't so sure. I think it was more lust than real love between them. But I really liked his character because, as you said, Sarah, he was unpredictable, and he had this twist in the end where he went too far.
Yeah.
I agree. Absolutely agree. Like you felt all the way through. Now it turns, now it turns, now it turns. And it never quite did, and then it did, and then it turned again. Like you never quite knew where you had him or what he would do next. I quite like that. I really like that because you didn't know where it would end, and you all the way to the final pages were like, okay, he's gonna do something that will turn this around, and he kind of did, and he kind of didn't. And I really like that you didn't quite know, because sometimes it's very obvious that this person is a bad person, but there will come a twist, and then they will become a good person. And here it wasn't that black and white. And I agree. I don't think they're endgame. I think this is very much her first love, and the first time a boy shows interest in her, and she likes that. I don't think it'll last at all. No.
You know if it's a duology, a trilogy, or an anthology?
There is the problem of the second option. If not Elias,
then who?
Then who?
Yeah.
Because Mason and Lou is teaming up.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I also
and I don't
like
think she's into
first
Abigail.
Scene in the woods where we met him, where Charlie followed him, because then she is trying to flee. He says, "You can't flee because I am getting stronger because of your fear, so I can just walk through walls." And I was like,
Well, it is a established thing in books that some guys likes to watch you when you sleep. It's seen before. It doesn't make it okay, but it's a trope.
I've also written here in my notes, Twilight vibes. If we're talking about boys watching girls sleep.
Yeah. I can say I really like the fact that he was just 19. He wasn't a 100 years old person stuck in a body of a 19-year-old. And I like that we seeing that he's actually had a journey to become what he is, that he had to give up something, that he had to think about it, that it was his own choice, even if it's a bad choice, even if it's a choice made by a young child, to become the monster that he is. I like
and there's
that
definitely
aspect.
More backstory with him as well that we don't get in this one.
That's
that will probably hopefully will be.
And that's one of the unanswered questions. The background story, what happened really to his family, who did it, how did it happen, and who did he find the Norse god to? Who did he find Loki? Because if my family was murdered tomorrow, even if I was full of revenge, I'm not sure I could and I would know where to find the god to exact my revenge.
No.
Yeah, and also how did he find this berries? Because he said he had to go to Asgard to find the berries, but how did he get to Asgard if he hadn't eaten the berries?
And he had a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. He has a tree somewhere out in the garden.
Behind the house.
I think the reason why I feel he is irredeemable, at least in a romantic aspect, is particularly how he lied to Charlie about Sophie. So later in the books, he says, "Of course I knew she's a Valkyrie." So he has known all along she was alive. And he has seen her grief. It has been like a major part of Charlie. And he has never at any point thought it important to give her closure. And I think unless they have a conversation about that are not in the heat of the moment in the second book, I don't think that Charlie can move past that, because she's not taking her anger out on Sophie for not being dead. She's taking it out on Mason and on Elias for not telling her.
Yeah.
So I think
Mason didn't know that Sophie wasn't dead.
No,
but I felt like in some of the conversation that she's really angry with Sophie, but she's afraid to let Sophie feel that anger, so she lets it out in other avenues.
Yeah, because I was just thinking that if we talk about Mason again, that Elias is kind of playing Mason's best friend, and Elias didn't tell Mason either about Sophie. So that might also be a breaking point for Mason.
But are they best friends? They have known each other a couple of weeks.
Right, I said Elias is playing. Best friends. It's a very short time they know each other.
But I think the difference there is Elias never told Mason about Asgard. So he couldn't, even if he was pretending to be his best friend, he couldn't say, "Oh, by the way, your sister is still alive."
Yeah.
It has nothing to
That's
do with
great.
football. I just
Mm.
wanted you to know that.
Yeah, I also think it was interesting that Charlie did not tell his Mason that Sophie
Yeah.
was alive, because and then he finds out, he of course gets angry. I understand him, because why didn't she tell him?
Yeah.
She planned to. She said, and she thought, okay, I will tell him, but it was not the right time. So she waited, and she waited just too long.
Yeah, but there never is a right time.
But I think also it's from she learns that Sophie is alive to everything goes down. It's 24 hours or something. Isn't things happening really, really quickly?
Yeah.
So perhaps she's just stunned that she's learned this, shocked, even still processing that. And then everything happens. So it's hard to find time.
Yeah.
But something I didn't understand is why Sophie asked that to Charlie. Why she gave that quest to Charlie? Why not do it herself?
Yeah.
Because she has more power. So that's a plot point I don't understand. Why was it absolutely Charlie who had to do that?
Yeah.
I have a lot of thoughts about Sophie. I felt she didn't know her sister at all. My feeling is that Sophie is in some way brainwashed or something, in control, not in control of her own body, because I felt it was so flat. Like, she's seeing her sister for the first time in a couple of years. She's telling her, hey, I'm not dead, but there is no emotion. And it's just straight, I have a quest for you. So she's almost like a tool. And we don't even really hear anything about what she's been doing, the process of being this. So I'm very skeptical about Sophie either being completely herself or being a good person. Actually, that's one of the questions I have for the sequel, is
that she's been formatted in this other person, and the Valkyrie, it's a little bit like the army. Everyone is thinking the same and going in the same direction and so on. But she also said that she, several times, she went to see Charlie, and she communicated in her sleep when Charlie dreamt. So, but you're right. It's straight to the point. It's urgent. We don't have a lot of time. You have to do that. But why? Why Charlie? She was not the best equipped person. So I didn't understand. Why can't you do that yourself?
And why now? I can understand that you had to wait until Elias gave her the berry so that she could see this world. But why not visit her that night and say, hey, I can save you all the time investigating this and going along with this guy. Go here.
Yeah. That's kind of an issue often in fantasy, I think, that one person has the answers and has the ability to tell the main character the answers, but just doesn't.
Yeah.
For who knows why. There's never a good reason. That's kind of a shame, I think.
Yeah, I'm hoping that it's something that are dwelled more into in the next book. That we're meant to be a little frustrated with Sophie.
Yeah, because maybe we find out. Yeah, exactly. Maybe she has a reason. Yeah. Maybe we find out why she can't tell these things. Yeah.
Also, we never know what happened to the student in the end, because that's the beginning of the plot. That's the quest. She wants to find the student. She wants to rescue them, and then it's like brushed under the rug at the end. We don't know what happened.
No.
We suppose they are dead, but no one talks about them anymore.
No.
Yeah, they were blood sacrificed, I think.
Probably, yeah. And these trees with all these markings and stuff like that. Yeah.
That was also very interesting for me, because in the start of the book, it was like, this is a big plot, some kids getting kidnapped, but we don't really hear that much about them later, other than more kids are getting kidnapped. And we don't find them, and we don't know if they're dead or alive.
Yeah, it kind of stands out kind of like a mystery novel kind of thing. Like, we need to figure out what's going on with these missing kids. And we never get the payout.
No, but maybe next book.
Hopefully, yeah.
But something we do discover that we were not investigating is who Charlie, Mason, and Sophie's dad
Yeah.
were.
Yeah.
The god Loki.
Yeah.
Which means this book is just a complete family drama because the Fenris wolf is the half brother. So it's really just
Oh yeah. I
it's
didn't
really
thought
just
about that.
a brother fighting with his younger siblings,
That's such a funny way to look at it. I really like that.
and they're all fighting for dad's attention.
Attention,
I know it's not that's not the point of it, but it was. I did note that.
That's a good take.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know there is in Greek mythology this big tradition of demigods, of half god, half humans, but we haven't really seen it in Nordic mythologies.
No.
No,
But
it's
I
not really
like it.
something that they delve into in like the sagas and stuff like that. It's not really a thing.
No, but I do like that. That is why they're special. Perhaps that's why
Yeah.
they're individually targeted. Is
Yeah.
because they have this connection that they're somehow related to Asgard, even if they haven't eaten the berries yet.
Yeah. And
But
there's
I
also kind of sorry,
Yeah.
you go ahead.
I also
know.
think it was kind of interesting that Loki did not know that it was his children who would come after him. So I like to see how the story would unfold in the next book.
Yeah, and what I wanted to add, it's surprising that these half-gods don't have special powers.
Maybe they do. And we don't know yet.
We will discover.
I got the sense that Charlie maybe has something because
Me too.
she feels more home in Asgard, and she has these premonitions about things and instincts that lets her know what to do in situations.
Yeah.
And I think that's her heritage. And also, they talk a lot about these Vylve, the Nordic shamans, as they're talked. I have always been taught they're more like witches, the old the Danish word witches. And there's a lot of talk about how it was a Vylve who sealed off Asgard back then, and I kind of think that's the road for Charlie, is to become this Nordic shaman, to be the one who can seal off everything again. And perhaps that is because she is the god of the child of Loki.
But I also thought about the set in that mythology that only a human can break the seal. So maybe she would be the one to break the seal.
Yeah.
Also, she's doing these like sleight of hand magic tricks. Loki is the god of tricks, the god of trickery, the trickster god. Kind of maybe there's something there. Also, she says she's been working on this catching a bullet with her mouth trick all of her life, and she really wants to. And as far as I know, it's never been done. No one's ever actually caught a bullet with their teeth. There's always a decoy somewhere, but she actually does it. So maybe there are some powers in her. She is actually able to do these kind of sleight of hand and might be a bit better than the average.
Yeah, I was disappointed we didn't get an explanation. How did she catch
exactly, yeah.
I'm going to give a little teaser for 2 weeks from now when I'm interviewing Emma Noyes about the book.
Yeah.
That is one of my questions for her.
Love it.
How did she catch the bullet? And we will see if we get the answer magic or magician can't tell. So I will be back with answers for that.
Thank you.
But I get the feeling that Loki has to know about Mason. Mason remembers his dad.
Yeah.
He has to know that their mom was pregnant again. I don't necessarily get the feeling with how the book ends that it was Loki's choice to leave, that perhaps the mom had more to do with him not being in their life than she has told the children. And I get this because I feel like Mason is being enchanted by his mom on the last pages. He's really angry. He want to talk to his mom about stuff. And then she just say, oh, go to your room. And he completely shuts down and is almost forgotten everything and just goes to his room. So
and I think maybe the mom is under some kind of enchantment as well, because she's really good at deflecting every time someone had asked her about the kid's dad.
So you see it as her being under the spell, because I see it as her doing the spell, that she's good at deflecting because she didn't want to talk about it.
Possibly, could be both.
Yeah.
I got the kind of impression that she was under some kind of spell, because she seemed very aloof every
too.
time someone talked about the dad.
Yes, he didn't know anything.
Absolutely not.
No. Or at least she pretends to.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the
He's
cynical
right.
of me.
Okay, taking bets.
we will reconvene when the second book is out and we have read it,
Yes,
and
please.
we can take bets on who is right. Another character that has an important role is Henry, the
Henry.
cookie-eating Vatte.
Yeah.
Lisa, before we started, you told us that you had some opinions.
Oh, that's not on the Vetter. That's on the Will of the Wisps.
Okay, the Will of the Wisps.
Yeah.
We'll just briefly take the Vatte,
Of course. Yeah.
and then
I
we
do
can
also
go
have
to-
opinions on Henry. Let it be
Could we
known.
please have them then?
I think the picture we get of Henry is not very Scandinavian. That's not how the Vetter, the Tomte, Nisse, however you want to say it, looks or acts in Scandinavian, like folklore. It's very Americanized. He looks very much like these goblin kind of creatures that you see everywhere during the holidays in America, with this like cap drawn down to the eyes. You only see the big puffy nose, and there are no legs or anything. That's very, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's not quite how the Vetter are portrayed in Scandinavian folklore, and it's fine. It's not anything bad. It's just like a thought I had that's very Americanized, I think. And I get it, because I believe, like, if it's written to an American audience, like that they can see something they can kind of recognize. That makes sense. But yeah, just wanted to say that's not how they are portrayed in Scandinavian folklore. They are very like protective spirits of like the farm that people live on, the families live on back in 1800, whatever, when these mythologies arise. So that him being a protector of his chosen human makes very good sense in this scenario. Yeah.
I like the aspect that he was also angry and violent, that he could be angry and violent.
Yeah. That's
he
also very
was
true to the folklore.
twofold.
Yeah.
I found it funny that she mixed it with the gremlins.
Yeah.
It was totally unexpected.
Yeah.
He would become a big and really like a gremlins. That's what she said. So it was kind of funny and surprising.
I think it's because in the myth, as I remember it, about Tomten, is that it's a house spirit that will either bless your farm with good fortune if you give it food, cookies, but if you don't feed it and you insult it, it will become a monster that will give you misfortune, that will curse you, that will hurt
kill your cows, stuff like that.
I hope we don't see Henry turn on Charlie. I hope that he is the one relationship throughout these books she can trust, because there isn't much she can trust.
No.
Alberte, did you have any thoughts on Henry?
Yeah, I thought it was a little funny that they watched the Netflix series The Witcher together.
Yeah.
And then Henry was so taken by Henry Cavill, The Witcher. And I think because, as they described, he looks for a brave soul. And Henry, the Witcher, is a brave soul that slays monsters. That's just what the Vatte wants. I think it was very fun. Also, the fact that he likes cookies. I didn't see that coming, except for the bookmark.
Yeah. Like in the folklore, the Vetter eats porridge.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's not, I think, very much what a 16-year-old girl eats.
At home, and
changing it to cookies makes sense.
And what I found very interesting, it was the comment of Elijah as explaining that the Vetter usually was a friend with Valkyrie. So it was like a scoop before we met Sophie.
I didn't catch that, but that's that's really cool.
Yeah.
I think it's lucky for Charlie that Henry Cavill is from England and doesn't live in Michigan, then if Henry is so enamored with this actor.
We leave Charlie for Henry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As long as
I
Henry
think-
Cavill doesn't go to Michigan, Charlie is safe.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people in my life that if they got the chance, they would leave their partners for Henry Cavill.
For Henry.
That's a side note.
Yeah, so I do like the aspect of her naming Henry in order to create a
Yeah.
bond, because that is something we see actually more in fairy
Yeah.
kind of fantasy, that the names have
Meaning.
importance.
Yeah.
I'm mostly thinking about Emily Wilde, because that's the latest with fairies I've read. But I do really like the fact that they have a connection. I think it's really tragic that the parents are so
Yeah.
horrible.
Yeah. Awful. Abandoning your kid. Okay.
Yeah. And we
Go
don't
find
know
your
how long.
person.
We don't
But
know how
is-
long the vet has been going around looking for a
No.
brave soul. Maybe 100 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But is there kind of a parallel to Henry being kicked out and left behind, abandoned by his parents, and Loki abandoning all of his children, even if it's on purpose or not? Because
Could be.
Fenris hasn't had his dad, Mason and Charlie he isn't the classic great father figure.
No.
So it's kind of the trend in Asgard.
Yeah. Also, Elias talks about that. I don't know if it's his real story or if it's just something he fabricated to tell people where he moves around to, but that he was thrown out from his parents, that he is not welcome at his parents' house.
Oh, but that's his cover story, because we
No,
learned
yeah,
that
exactly. But that's
yeah.
also a parallel there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and of course, the old father, Odin, throws out Loki from Asgard. I know that's not his dad, but it's still a father figure.
Yeah.
I want to hear your opinions about the Will of the Wisps, but I will come back to that. I also want to touch on the fact that the myths in this and the mythology and all the gods are there more true-ish, dark, kind of dickish versions. It's not this fairy tale, oh, there's the good gods and the bad gods.
Mm.
They are all bad in different
Mm.
ways.
Yeah.
I like that aspect, that you can't
it's
trust
not-
any of them.
It's not like Disneyfied. It's not like the Pretty in Pink fairy tales. Like these creatures are dark, and sometimes you can trust them, some of them you can trust, some of them you can't, and that's just how they are, and that's how they are in folklore. That they're very double-sided.
Yeah. The morally
Yeah.
grey.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think there's been a trend of making these gods more human and likable,
Mhm.
both the Greek gods and the Nordic gods in later
Yeah.
years. So I want to ask Sophie,
Mhm.
you have not grown up with this myth as being part of your nation's story and where you came from. So what were your thoughts about the gods going into this book?
It didn't surprise me because I'm used to Greek gods, and we see that Greek gods, for example, you have Zeus, which has a lot of mistresses and a lot of children, half recognized, some yes, some not, and so on. So you also have that in European folklore in other parts. In my country, we don't have mythology; we just have God. Except Saint Nicholas. Okay.
Important.
Okay. So it's not particular to my country, but I'm used to Greek mythology, and in Greek mythology you also have very bad parents. The gods are selfish, essentially selfish, and they only think of themselves mostly. And sometimes, oh yes, I remember I have a kid and I can use that kid to do something for me. But so I wasn't shocked.
No. I just think this is a different take on the Nordic gods than people who come from Marvel perhaps will expect. And they actually do comment on that in the book, that, hey, he is not the brother for, he is a Yeti.
He's certainly not the Loki from Marvel.
No.
Hmm.
I do hope
don't they say that this is not Tom Hiddleston, this is not Chris Hemsworth?
Yeah. But I do hope he gets to play a bigger part in the next book, even if he doesn't have to become a hero necessarily.
Yeah,
I think so too, because as we have discussed here, now the side character, now the truth, and now we are introduced to Loki. So I'm expecting that all these characters will play a bigger part in the next side of the story, and it will be maybe less Charlie centered and more family or friend centered or something like that.
Maybe even seen from Mason's point of view.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I think definitely we will get to hear more about Loki, because you wouldn't throw in that bigger character, that bigger name in a story like in the last 10 pages and then not use him.
Mic drop and then never come back.
Yeah, exactly. This is the children's father. He's a god. He is Loki. We all know who that is. Never meet him again. Like, you wouldn't. I'd be very surprised if that was to happen.
True.
Now we have time for your opinions
on
Will of the Wisps.
Will of the Wisps. I don't think it's necessarily just this book, but I think it's very unfortunate that in English, Lygtemanden, which he's called in Danish, the Lantern Man, is translated to Will of the Wisps, because that's a very Celtic thing, and that's very established in Celtic folklore and Celtic mythology. So, and it's two very different things. Like, they kind of do the same thing, but like the imagery is so different that the Will of the Wisp in Celtic is more like these little like trickery lights, where this lantern guy is an actual guy with a lantern. And I think it's very unfortunate that it gets lost in translation. And it's not just this book. I've seen it other places as well. But I think it's a shame that, but there are no other translations for this folklore person. And as I think it's unfortunate.
Yeah, you see that in the Luminaries, for example, from Suzanne Art, you also have the Will of the Wisp, which is a small creature, greenish, and not a lantern man. That's the first I hear about it, to be honest.
And in Scandinavian folklore, the lantern man is a man that kind of walks in the shadows. You kind of see his light, and kind of lures you away. Sometimes he can protect you. Sometimes he's just there to lure you away to your death. I think it's a shame that those two get mixed up, because they are different, and they're from different cultures and different historic like your timelines. And I just think that's a shame.
But I think even if it's not the folklore, I think it's still used to create this vivid world that we are not allowed to see every part of, because there isn't the time. We do have a timeline. We have something we need to do. So we'll just see this person in the forest doing something. That could be a whole adventure by itself.
Absolutely.
But I think we are also perhaps having the difficulties of an American author who can research and research and research, but if the materials aren't there, they're just gonna be confused, and we see that all the time.
And that's why, like, it's not just this book that falls into this trap, because it's everywhere that the translation for this person is Will of the Wisp. So
we have 10 minutes left until we have to say goodbye for today, and I've got a couple of comments from Instagram, and I want to start off by saying that Catherine really loves our bookshelves in the background of each of our shots.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
And then I have a question from Laura, also on Instagram, who asks us, what would you like to see in the next book? So if we start with Alberte.
I think I would like to see some more of Loki, because as we talked about, we just had his name mentioned in the last 10 pages to see how it unfolded, and more about the creatures of the world and more about her friends, especially Mason, her brother. What is his side of the story? How he's cooperating with his sisters now alive. So all of these I like to be more explored.
And you, Lisa?
I would like to hear more about Elias's backstory. Like, where did he come from? Why did he choose to become a mayor? What did he have to give up? And also more of these creatures. Again, I may be biased because I really like this folklore. But if there are any more creatures, or you go more into depths with these different creatures we already know, I would love that.
And Sophie?
More about Elias' backstory too. Also more about the underground, the underworld, where Loki lives, because I think she will go to the underworld. I think so. And also how the conflict between Mason and Charlie will resolve itself. What will they do? And how will Sophie come back in their life? Will she be more Sophie or more like a robot or a Valkyrie? And also, yes, what's the end goal for Charlie in that story? Because we don't really know. Is she meant to play a big role about the shaman, the guardian of both worlds, for example? Is she meant just to save the world just now and then go on with her life? Is she meant to redeem Elijah and give him a second chance? We don't know. We don't really know at the moment.
Yeah, the whole world is open to us.
Yeah.
I would like a very broad thing. I would like to know more about Sophie's years as a Valkyrie, her time there, and then very specific. I'm intrigued about what the Ash wife needed the wolf tooth for.
Right.
Yeah.
I think there is some seed of something there.
Probably.
But as I mentioned earlier, I'm gonna be interviewing the author in a couple of weeks. We have 2 open spots on the panel. So if any one of you or the people who are watching right now wants to interview her together with me, you can write to me. The mail is my email is in the description. But right now I want to ask you, both at home and here in front of me, do you have any questions for the author? If you can, I can of course not ask her what's gonna happen in the next book.
Please do.
I don't think she's gonna answer that. But if you do have anything that you want me to question her about, I would be happy to bring it with me.
Was it difficult for her to write about young adults? Because one of the bloggers I'm talking with told me that so far she wrote adult or new adult books. So why choose to go YA? And it was difficult to go YA because we commented that Charlie is very teenager. So it was difficult to impersonate a teenager.
That's a really good question.
Yeah. I'd like to know why Nordic, why Scandinavian folklore? There's like all over the world. There's so many different mythologies and folklores that you could delve into. Why did you choose this one? And where did the idea come from?
Yeah, that's also very interesting. Do you have anything else, Dad?
No, it's hard to just get a question right now. I can't really.
It's okay.
Think of
one. If you think of one, you can write it to me. You can comment on Instagram. You can send us an email or comment on this video whenever you get it, and I will be looking at it before going live on the 2nd of November at 5, right here on YouTube. It will be, as this is the first interview with an author we have, it will also be public for everybody to see. But afterwards, both book clubs like this and interviewers with the authors will only be for subscribers of the newsletter or subscribers of the book boxes here from Book in a Box. Do you have Yeah, sorry, it's the 3rd of November. I'm sorry. Do you have any last comment for us here today? Would you be reading the next book?
Yes, I
Yeah.
already asked the author for an advanced reading copy. So yes.
I really want to read the next book too, because I think there's a lot of unanswered questions I want to hear.
Yeah. I will hope, even if it's not the advanced reading copy, that it will be out soon, but I think we have to wait a while.
Yeah.
Perhaps.
Maybe that's one of the questions you should ask her.
Yeah. When
Yeah.
will the next book come
When
out?
do we get it?
Or can Sophie get her advanced
Yeah.
reading copy?
I know that she has advanced reading copy.
Yeah.
She has not published anymore at home. That's what she has told me, but she has advanced reading copy, electronic advanced reading copy. So, but that doesn't mean that it will be published soon. It depends on their publishing house, probably, and on their schedules and so on. But there is definitely something ready.
I think I will also take a sneak peek if I can get one of those copies. I really want to thank you for being here with me today for the first ever book club in a box. You're always welcome to come back, but everybody watching this video either live or as a recording can also become a part of the book club. All you need to participate is to read the book and have a camera and a microphone. And then it's possible to join me here next month when we talk about the October book, which is also very exciting. I'm really looking forward to that one as well. Yeah, so I know we have a couple of minutes left, but if we're all done, then I guess there's nothing else to say. Then goodbye. Thank you so much for watching. And we're offline.